Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to another edition of Real Spiritual Talk Radio. I am your host, Lamont Gates, once again bringing you the world of faith, metaphysicality, and spirituality. Today, my guest encountered a life review during her near-death experience, which gave her an acute awareness about herself and her environment. Joining me, ladies and gentlemen, today is near-death experiencer Ren Goodspeed. Ren, welcome to Real Spiritual Talk Radio.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Absolutely. And Ren, I understand that you had a very deep life review that taught you a lot about yourself, and to the point where you can see yourself totally different. Is that so?
Absolutely. Yes, it was the most remarkable experience I have ever had / could ever imagine. It gave me insights into every aspect of my life, and even why I had the relationships I had, and totally took everything that I thought and twisted it into making perfect sense, instead of being confusing. And I started to not feel like a victim anymore. I realized that I chose it, and it was just so mind-blowing. The whole experience was just awesome.
And we will get into that. Sounds very fascinating. But before we do, I like to walk backwards and get a little bit historically acquainted with my guests and their religious or non-religious upbringings. What about it? Did you have any religious belief systems prior to your near-death experience?
Well, when I was a small child, my parents would take me to Catholic Mass on Christmas and Easter. So, and I think that lasted maybe until I was around 12, I would say. So we went like every year until I was around 12. And other than that, I didn't ever have like a solid background or learn very much about the religion or the Bible. I kind of really just focused on the music when I went, and I really connected with that aspect. And then furthermore, when I became a teenager, I was very into paranormal. So I totally moved away from, religion, and was just all about, paranormal stuff. I played with Ouija boards, and, made little seances with my friends who got totally freaked out and like called their moms to pick them up. But yeah, so I was into spirituality, and I felt like there's definitely more here than meets the eye. And I had a lot of paranormal activity in the home that I grew in. So I couldn't really ignore it. So yeah, that's pretty much my background.
It sounds like you kind of played on the wild side with the spirituality a bit with the Ouija board and seances.
I know. I totally did. I was just so curious, and because I had the paranormal activity around me, I was wanting to make contact and find out what's going on here. I did quickly regret playing with the Ouija board, by the way.
Well, with that said, let's get into your near-death experience. I
Yeah.
understand that it took place in December, the 21st to be exact, of the year 2020. What was it that triggered your near-death experience to occur?
So I had a gallbladder removal surgery, and during the surgery, there was a complication where my bile duct was severed, and there was a lot of internal bleeding. I had previous abdominal surgeries, so I had a lot of scar tissue in there, which I guess prevented them from seeing the complication at the time, mixed with all the blood. Not to get graphic, but so I got sent home, and I was home for, I believe, 2 days. And I went really quickly downhill. And I actually started having out of body experiences while I was at home. And then that kind of prompted my mom to take me back to the hospital, me kind of recalling some of the things I was seeing and feeling. really alarmed her. And so she took me back to the emergency room, and they ended up scheduling me for surgery, but they couldn't get me in right away. So I was still suffering with this bile leak, which basically it was stomach acid that was dripping in my internal organs. And I ended up getting a infection and having a fever. And when I went to go and have the surgery, the procedure to fix that, I had, there was a big IV in my arm that was there like all day, where they were pumping me full of fluids and antibiotics and things. And there was a nurse that removed that. And at this point I was super weak, barely even cognitive, really bad off. And the nurse, it was late at night, and the nurse, I think was distracted, and there was no one else in there. So for some reason, I didn't have my arm bandaged off or any pressure applied. And I guess just that was enough to tip me over the edge to where my body just shut down. So that's when the near-death experience occurred.
Very, very fascinating. I noticed you said that you had out-of-body experiences prior to having the full-blown experience. Can you talk a little bit about what those out-of-body experiences were like?
Yeah, it was really amazing. Well, one of them that was extremely significant was, so I never have like really prayed or called out for help. I've never been in a situation where I was in that space mentally, but this put me there. I was writhing in pain, and it got to the point where I was begging God, please, God, help me, please help me. And I, for some reason, knew that I would be able to contact God. And it was amazing, because when I cried out for help, it seems like I was transported what I saw was, I was all of a sudden standing on this cliffside. And I remember there was really brightly colored grass under me, and there was a sunset in the sky. And I was standing there kind of with the wind blowing through my hair and blowing my clothes, and an angel appeared, and it was huge. This angel, I mean, bigger than I ever expected, if I even had an expectation. And there was this telepathic kind of energetic exchange that happened between us. And the being conveyed to me his name, I guess you would call it, and it was Gabriel. So I had never heard that. I had no idea what was being told to me. I heard it in my head, Gabriel, and I'm okay. And he said, remember who you are. And it was like this ball of energy was transferred from him to me. And I felt so relieved, so loved, so connected. And I was just in this beautiful place. And then I kind of got jolted back into my body. So that was one of the experiences. Another one was, again, with angels. I had an angel come and kind of stand behind me and put their hand on my forehead. And this was like right before I went to the emergency room. It was when it got really serious. And I don't know if this is out of body, but it's definitely something that's out of the norm. I felt the angels surrounding my bed and like healing me in a sense, kind of holding me in this like energetic cocoon. And I was able to not feel the pain, and it was remarkable. And I guess the other out of body thing would be, I actually like astro traveled. I left my body as much as possible after the thing happened with Gabriel. I realized I had the ability somehow. So I would kind of just fly around through the leaves of the trees outside of my house. And I was kind of flying over the earth and like looking down at these different places. And it was like almost limitless. It was like I could do anything. I could be anywhere. And it was a lot of fun, but it was short-lived, and then I would be kind of jolted back into the body.
Very fascinating. So why don't you take us into when you had your full-blown near-death experience, to which your life review came about?
Yes. Okay. So I remember this like sucking feeling, almost is the best way I could describe it. It was like I was being sucked out of my body, and it was through my crown, that my soul, I guess, kind of sucked out of the top of my head. And then I remember looking down at my body, and I felt this like disconnect. Like it took me a minute to realize that that was me, because it didn't feel like me anymore. It's really interesting, but I felt like this is the real me, the soul. And the body, I mean, something in me knew that I had been in there, but it was just this strange sensation of seeing this body and not feeling anything for it. You know, I wasn't worried about it. I wasn't, you know, I was kind of watching them panicking around me, the doctors and the staff. And it was really interesting because I had like this 360 view of everything, but not just what was happening there, but what was happening at home with my family, what was happening with my extended family. I could hear and feel all of the thoughts that were going through the medical staff's mind. I felt the guilt that nurse felt, and you know, them feeling it was their fault, but it wasn't, of course. But I remember feeling sympathy for them, and kind of feeling like, it's okay, I'm fine. Why are you panicking? I'm right here. I'm great. And so I could really, I don't know, it's interesting because I could be multiple places at the same time. My perception was expansive. And I stayed there for just a couple, I don't even know how to measure time, but a little bit, just to see my body a little bit and see kind of what they were doing. And then there was this white light that almost just kind of changed everything. It transported me. I didn't see a tunnel or anything like that. It was just this huge white light. And then I was somewhere else. And I felt huge. I felt like I was like, there were no limits to my being. I felt like I was just this humongous thing. Don't know how I shoved myself in that tiny body. And so I'm in this new place. So I remember I was looking at the outside of a building, which was kind of weird, but the way the building appeared was huge. Like, I almost feel like it was almost endless looking. It was so big. And I kind of saw the front and the side, so it just kept going and going and going. And it was made of marble, white, and it had columns kind of all around it. And it definitely reminded me of like the ancient Greek temples and things I've seen, not in person, but and then I remember there being grass outside, and the grass was like this ultra fluorescent green, like the most beautiful green, and against that white, it was amazing. And I remember one tree was also there, and the leaves of the tree were I don't even know what color it was, because I'd never seen it. The closest I could say would be kind of a magenta. And it had a white trunk, and there was something really special about that tree, but I didn't get to find out what. I was pulled to go into this building, and I kind of just went through it. I went through the wall. It didn't seem solid, and into this room. So the room was in a circular shape. So I remember, oh, and there was this other being with me that I forgot to mention. So right when the white light happened, that's when another being joined me. And I felt like it was a super familiar presence. I couldn't see them, but I could feel them like over my right shoulder, if I had a shoulder. So anyway, I get into this round room with my guide, and there were other beings there as well. The other beings were a little bit further removed from me, and I couldn't see any faces, but I do remember seeing a robe, like a hooded robe. And I only really looked and saw one of them, but I could feel that there were more, but somehow I felt like I shouldn't look, almost like I don't know. It was just a feeling of, oh, there they are, but almost like I kind of knew they were there to support me, but that they were somehow removed from what I was going through. And my guide was right next to me the whole time. And the most awesome thing was I looked up, and there was no ceiling to this room. And there I could see like all these galaxies and stars. And there was this feeling that I have struggled to explain, but there was also this energy, this light. I guess light is the best word that I have, but it was so much more than a light. And I knew, like, I just knew, this is God. This is God. Oh my gosh, this is real. And I just felt that he was watching it all. And I felt like he was beaming, I say he, but it really was, there was no gender at all, was beaming down into my core. And like, it was almost like being in the womb. It was like the most comforting, warming sensation of pure love and acceptance. And it was like he was supporting me so that I could go through this life review, because it was going to be hard to see. And it was. But feeling that presence, it made everything, like, I didn't want to leave. I felt like, this is home. This is home. This is where I came from. I had all these knowings. It was more like I was remembering than being taught. You know, it was just this remarkable feeling of almost like a download of information coming from that source, that it was like I snapped into remembering, this is my truth. This is who I really am. This is who I came from. And then the life review started. So the life review was amazing. So it started off with, okay, it's not like a screen, but that's kind of the best way I can describe it, because you see it. and it's playing, but you're able to insert yourself into every scene that's playing. So it's kind of like you're reliving it all. But instead of reliving it through your perception, you are reliving it through multiple other perceptions. And then seeing yourself and your actions and feeling it as if you're the other person. And even you can even feel it through animals. You know, I even saw some of my animals and how, you know, how it felt to be rescued from the shelter. And I mean, just every little thing that you do is recorded and you see it all. So it started out with pre-birth, which was so trippy. So it was like I was looking at the earth and I was with others and we were all looking at the earth and discussing what was needed and what was going on and what time period I should come into. So it was like the whole history of Earth was accessible and viewable, and it was kind of like a movie, but not. And it was different. It kind of was this like, it was like in the center of all of us, and it was kind of like a water, like a mirror sort of, but like water. And that's what we were viewing this earth on. And it was like a holographic image. So it looked kind of 3D, if that even exists there. So anyway, there were these like dark patches of the earth. It was like I was viewing the energetic body of the planet. And there were this darkness seemed to be covering a lot of it. And it wasn't that way in the past. It seems like it was, this time period was chosen for me to come, and it was related to this darkness. I don't know if that's just how it was being shown to me symbolically or what, but I was looking for these dark patches and planning, I want to go to the darkest ones. That's where I want to go, because I want to make a difference. And I know that my energy and my skill set somehow would do best in this area. And I remember something about the polarities and like alchemy. So it was like the dark and the light, when they come together, it is transformational and it creates something new. And so somehow that's what I was striving to accomplish in this lifetime, was this transition. And then I picked the people. And I remember my mom, she actually prayed, and I could hear the prayer. She was struggling in her life, and it was a pretty hard family dynamic to come into. She had a lot of struggles and she needed assistance, and she was praying that God would send her someone to help a child. And I remember agreeing, that's me, it's me, I want to do it. And so then I was shown the womb, inside the womb, which was remarkable to me because I had always kind of wondered when souls come in, but I definitely was already in there as a fetus. I remember like hearing 2 different heartbeats. I remember hearing muffled talks. I remember feeling what she felt and the excitement, the nervousness. And I remember that, you know, being born. I saw myself as a child, and I saw how I instinctively knew how to take care of myself as a child. And then as time progressed, it's like I got programmed to forget all of that. So it was like seeing that reminded me, you know, I saw myself walking barefoot all the time as a kid. And, you know, everyone always joked, why are you always barefoot? And I found the reason was to ground. I was grounding myself because I was there to transmute energy. I didn't know what that meant until this experience. And then I saw different relationships that I had, and I saw what my actions and reactions, how that affected the other person, and not just them, but the people they interacted with. So it was like this spider web full of, you know, this ripple effect of that. It doesn't just affect the one person that you're interacting with, it actually transfers into all of their relationships, and just how transformational kindness is. So I saw, for example, I worked at a coffee shop. This was one of the most remarkable ones. I worked at a coffee shop, and I, you know, try my best to kind of make it a really good experience for everybody. And there was this woman that came in that I could just feel she was really having a hard time. And she was coming across as very irritated and anxious and just wanting me to hurry up. And, you know, but something in me told me to look in her eyes and show her kindness. And I did. And I just remember feeling like I need to have a conversation with this woman, even though she's pushing me away. I kind of forced it, you know. And then after she left, I was like, well, I don't know if I made a difference or not. And then I saw it from her perspective. Her perspective was she was treating herself to a coffee because she had a plan to end her life later that day. And what she needed more than anything was to feel valued and seen by a stranger. And I was that stranger. And I feel like God worked through me to give her what she needed in that moment. And I think that's the same with all of us. It was pretty remarkable. I had always kind of felt like a victim to my life. I had a lot of chronic illnesses, a lot of diagnoses through my life, and they showed me what made me sick. It was like each instance they brought up for me to see when I buried my emotions down, when I talked negatively to myself, when I told myself it was my responsibility to fix these people for some reason, you know, and I must have failed because they're not better. And so it was like also I was taking on other people's energy without realizing it, taking it from them, and then I never released it. But more than anything, it was the emotions, the negative emotions, and lack of self-love. I was loving everyone else, but I wasn't loving me. I wasn't taking care of me. And the way I was loving other people even wasn't genuine enough, in a sense, because I wanted something in return. I wanted attention. I wanted to feel that love back, and I never could feel that connection back. And I realized by them showing me that I was the one creating all of my chronic problems, because I was choosing to take medications to act as like a band-aid or to cover it up, the symptoms, instead of doing what hurt, and that's digging deep and finding out what actually hurt me. And then it was so amazing, because the things that actually hurt me the most, that I was holding all this toxicity about, I got to see those people, what they went through, and their family lineage even. So it goes even beyond just the person in front of us. It's like they have this whole family lineage of energy that can get carried through. And so I saw why they reacted the way they did. I saw why they were so closed off to my love, why they couldn't reciprocate it, because they'd never been taught. They've never felt it. It even made them feel insecure and weirded out to be around me because of that. And, you know, seeing that, it blew my mind. It just blew my mind.
Well, there is a lot to chew on there as it pertains to your near-death experience. I have a few questions I'd like to go back and make a few points that you rose. In the very beginning, I've always been interested in how people leave their body. You stated that you were coming out through your crown, through your head, which is very common in many near-death experiences. People say that they leave very often through their skull or through their head, and sometimes even return that way. You then talk about having this power of ubiquity, meaning being in multiple places at the same time, being able to see relatives and friends over here and over there that were completely out of your region, which is also very common. And then you say something about the spirit that I immediately jumped to a Bible verse on. You talked about how grand and expansive your spirit was, to the point where you don't know how you could actually fit it into your physical body. Reminded me of a verse where King Solomon was told by God in the Bible to build him a temple. And Solomon questions God by saying, well, God, even the sky can't even hold you. You want me to build a temple to hold your spirit in? So that kind of reminded me, you know, of how your expansive spirit fits inside of this physical body. Well, all of ours does, actually. And then you said you saw this light that you just knew was God. Was there any communication from this light to you that it was God, or was it more of a knowing?
It was a knowing. It was just, I knew it. And it was actually a recognition, I would say, because I already knew him.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it was like this just soul recognition. If I had a body, I would have just immediately started crying because it was like the most emotional a moment, you know, to get that confirmation and to get that connection back. It was so beautiful.
And that's probably the number one answer that people give when they're asked, was this God? How do you know that it communicate that it was God? And most people say, you just know. When you're there, you come into a place of just knowing who's who and what's what. You then talk about seeing patches or this light and this darkness, this comparison of light and darkness. And in your pre-birth planning, you were looking at these patches of darkness, and you decided you wanted to go into the darkest place. Obviously, was that because you wanted to bring light to it, or
Yes.
was it for some other reason?
Yes, it was. The intention was to bring unconditional love and acceptance and forgiveness to this dark energy, if you will.
Your life review also brought you into an encounter where you can recall yourself working at a certain place. You mentioned this lady had come in for a cup of coffee where you are employed, and she was very rude, and you tried your best to be kind to her despite her rudeness, not knowing that this lady was going to go and commit suicide. How could anyone possibly know that? But I think the message there is, be kind, bring that light to the patches of darkness, because you just never know who you may impact. And you realize that.
Yes, exactly. Those little interactions that we have that we think might be insignificant, that's almost the most significant thing in our life review. It's like, that's the most important thing there is these random acts of kindness. It changes everything.
And in addition to those random acts of kindness that you spoke about, you also talked about self-perception, self-esteem, how we see ourselves. Sometimes we give so much of ourselves to others that we forget to treat ourselves well. It's like we're becoming people pleasers, as you stated before. You wanted something out of it, but you weren't receiving it because you lacked the self-esteem, the proper self-esteem.
Exactly, exactly. I didn't love myself, and I didn't have the connection to the source that I needed. You know, I had blocked myself out. I felt unworthy to even connect in with God.
And speaking of God, the life review itself, not only could you see your perspective, but the other person's perspective, but you mentioned seeing the origin of some of the problems that the people that you came in contact with. So it's almost as if being in this place made you, and I said this before in a past show, and the person said, yeah, I agree with you shakily, but it kind of made you like God, would you say?
Yes, in a sense, absolutely. I agree with that, because ever since, even, you see things so differently. And I believe it was with the help of God, you know, moving through me and with me, merging almost with me, when I saw this, that I could see them as God sees them.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only way I can interpret what you just
Yeah.
described here in your life review. So why don't you tell us what it was like coming back to your body after this experience?
Okay. So I did actually choose to come back. I was presented with a choice. And at first I really didn't want to, because I wanted, and I kind of feel like I was in an in-between place where if I would have decided to go on, I could move forward to the next thing. And that's the sense I got. And I was wanting to go there so bad, but I was actually shown, I guess, the future. I was shown my main family members, especially my sister, my parents, my spouse, and my kid. I was shown how they would react to my death, each of them, what they would feel, and how that would affect their lives and relationships with each other. And I knew my mission was not done, because it was detrimental. It was, I wasn't done yet. And I could feel that. And they also showed me what would happen if I decided to come back. And I saw myself helping others in a new way. And I saw myself forgiving them for everything. And I, you know, as much as I tried, I did have some grudges I was still kind of holding on to, you know, I mean, because I didn't see it through their perspective. I didn't realize why they did the things they did. And so I was hurting inside from it. But after that, you know, I was shown what that forgiveness would do to them and what their lives might look like. And there was no question. I want to come back. I will come back. I will be of service and do the work I came to do. So when I came back in, I remember kind of actually floating above myself again. And then I went back in through the head. And I do remember kind of almost giggling about, like, oh, wow, here we go again. You know, I knew it would hurt, but it was worth it. So it was really quick. It was like I was kind of observing for a few minutes, and then I was sucked back in. And then I remember opening my eyes, and all my senses were extremely amplified. Everything was super loud and super bright. And I had a lot of concerned faces of looking down at me. And I remember one nurse saying, "Oh my God, we thought we lost you." And I'm like, "What? Oh my gosh." You know, just confused in a sense, like it was a lot to process. So that's kind of what it was like coming back in.
Now, you talked about having higher or heightened sensory perceptions. Many near-death experiencers, when they come back from a near-death experience, typically describe having heightened senses. They describe after effects, if you would, that may include the lack of the fear of death, precognition, higher rates of empathy, etc. Did you come back with anything remotely close to these?
Yes, all of the above. Absolutely. An interesting thing that changed as well is, and this is weird, but my eye color. I got golden rings in my eyes, and they used to be very dark brown, and now they've got these golden rings, which is interesting. I'm not constantly seeking love from the outside anymore. I know it's within, and I have access to it at all times. And so I always feel so full of love and so connected. I've had a lot of visions. I've had more connections with angels. I connected with Jesus after coming back, and he kind of helped me step even more so out and show the world what happened. Some funny stuff that happened was like, I'm like a different person. The things I like are totally different. I used to wear all black all the time, and now I'm like florals and bright colors, and I totally redecorated my whole house. I've got angels everywhere. And everything's bright and beautiful. And I have to meditate every day. And it's like just a requirement. And I think we all should, but I know now why I need to, because I have to maintain that connection, and also give myself, the space that I need as a soul to like think about things in a different way than maybe I perceive them right off the bat. I started singing in choir at church. I have no fear of death. I have this complete forgiveness. I just forgive everybody. They don't have to be sorry. I definitely have the ability to read people, and I can really step into them and kind of see things from their point of view very, very easily. I even have some of their past lives that come to me now. It was pretty intense, very, very intense at first. It was actually really hard to adjust to being back. I felt very otherworldly, very, just everything looked different and felt different. So yeah, there were so many changes. It's almost night and day.
You mentioned Jesus, you mentioned singing in a choir in church. I just have to go back to the original religious question. In your post-near-death experience, have you gone back to religion? Doesn't sound like you've gone back to the Ouija board.
I would say yes and no. So yes, I am part of a church and I sing in the choir, but I don't feel like I need to take everything that is said as fact. I just keep a really open mind to this whole thing now. So I would say I'm spiritual now, because I don't necessarily resonate with all of the belief systems and rules and things that the church has, but I believe in what they're doing. They're trying to bring us closer to the divine. And I do believe that the way we should be treating each other and loving each other, Jesus exemplified that and he set that blueprint down for us to follow. And so I always really go back to that as my cornerstone. And that's what I love about religion, is I can talk openly about Jesus and God. But personally, when I'm in my own zone, I am okay with calling it God, source, divine. Labels don't matter at all. And I don't feel like I'm boxed in. I feel like I can take what I feel is true, and what I don't resonate with, that's totally fine. And I just leave it alone and I move on. No big deal.
And I think in the current state that we're living in now, statistics show that churches have become more depopulated than they have in the past. And I believe strongly that what a lot of people in religion has been missing is what you found in your near-death experience, and that is love.
Yeah. Yes. Love is actually the only thing that's real, is what I found out through this experience. I mean, it is everything. It's in everything. It's our whole purpose, and it heals everything. It's the most amazing thing.
Oh, your account was amazing. And Ren, I want to thank you for coming on Real Spiritual Talk Radio and sharing with us your absolutely fascinating near-death experience.
Of course. Yes, it was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, Ren Goodspeed.